How can I adjust my diet myself after the challenge? So how can you start to manipulate these variables that I keep talking about and, like is some sort of magic to make sure that you continue on in a way that's progressing towards what you want? So there's a few things, like I've tried to make pretty apparent to people, there's certain levers that we can pull that will allow fat loss to happen or muscle gain to happen. There's all certain things in scientific studied ways that we can give ourselves the best chance of that happening, right? So, one of them is adjusting the calories down to a maintenance and beyond as far as fat loss goes. A lot of these videos I talk in the fat loss sense because muscle gain, it's another topic in itself, and I love talking about that. And if I got more questions about hypertrophy, I would love to, talk more about it. But, it sounds like everyone is more inclined to, dropping a little bit of body fat at the moment. So that's where I'm sort of gauging all these questions. But you've got to remember that muscle gain is almost the complete flip side to dieting for fat loss. You're looking for two completely different things, and sometimes they meet up in the middle, and sometimes both happen. But a lot of times, you're looking for two different things, so you should be doing two different things. So if that is something you're after, questions below. Let me know. Let me do a video on it so that we can work this out. All right. But how can I adjust my diet myself for after the challenge to continue to drop a few more kilos and just feel good in general? So look, there's not a hell of a lot that you need to change, right? You need to be looking at how your energy levels change now in comparison to while the challenge was on. Are you going back to work? Are you going to be moving less? You need to look at what's going on in your home. Do you miss home dinners with your family? Do you usually cook for the rest of the family, but you haven't for, these 8 weeks and you want to start doing that again? Do you miss going out on date nights with your partner? So then what you're going to do is you have to start looking at the things that you actually enjoy in life and things that are important to you and things that you possibly have neglected, during the challenge because you were trying to do everything right. And then making sure that they make a priority inside this diet, and then looking at what has to change to make those things accessible. For example, I really want to be able to have a date night with Charles again, at least once a week, once a fortnight, something like that, where I can have a burger and not feel guilty about it. We can go out and I can have a drink of alcohol if I want to, and not feel guilty about it. So what do I have to do to make sure that those things are allowed, are going to not completely rail off my progress, but at the same time, I have to make sure that the rest of my diet is good, right? So if that's something that is important to me once a week, then for the rest of the week, I need to, actually look at the fact that I'm going to be eating out this weekend. So the rest of the days, I don't need as much because I'm going to get that calorie intake at the end of the week. And I know people struggle with the whole calories thing, and how just how it works and how diligent it is and just how important it is. People struggle with that thought that it all comes down to calories as far as, driving your body to go in a different way. But it's what's happening, right? It is the thing that matters in a diet as far as, fat loss or anything goes. Everything else comes just underneath that. They're still important, but making sure that's there. So if you're going to be going out a little bit more, you want to make sure that you have a family dinner, every other night or something like that. It's about being able to look at the other side of the diet and the other days where, what is a perfect day to you? What is the best thing that you could possibly do for your body? You need to be looking at that. And hopefully it's something that you've found within this challenge, right? Hopefully it's something that, you're doing, whether it's, some morning walks, whether it's, eating a certain way or having a certain amount of meals in your diet or keeping protein at a certain amount, or, you need to be self-aware, right? You need to be able to feel those things and understand what's important to you and, what isn't as important. Maybe you were doing some things in the challenge that, I told you to do, but in reality didn't really feel too good, or you didn't really feel that much of a difference. If that is the case, then yeah, you should probably look at, changing a few of those things and, trying for yourself if they work or not. That is the most fun part about all of this, especially from my end, because as much as for anyone, for the pros of the pros, that say that they know exactly what they're doing all the time, every athlete is a guinea pig. every athlete, you're trying something. I can't know exactly how something's going to respond to you. I'm taking the data that I know and the science that I know and implementing what I think is the best way to go from there. And is it always? No, because you're human, right? And I'm human. I may have gotten it wrong. There's so many factors and variables to it. So in saying all of that, from there, look and reflect back on how you felt during this challenge. There's some of you that may have felt amazing, and then that having that routine and that structured diet just helped them. It helped them feel good throughout the rest of the week. It helped them feel like they had structure, which is so important for humans. But is it starting to make you like really regret it? Is it starting to make you feel a little bit shit and like you're missing out on stuff and, like things just aren't going the way that you thought they were? Then, that needs to be looked at. That needs to be, discussed and see what we can do about that to make sure, because, you're always going to be on a diet, right? For the rest of your life, you are dieting. Sometimes you just have a shit diet. Sometimes you have a great diet. Sometimes, it's somewhere in between. But the diet is a diet. You can't escape it because you can't escape food. You're always going to be eating. So how can I adjust my diet to myself after the challenge? It's about looking at the variables. The protein should stay constant. The protein should stay, quite high all the time because, we don't want to lose muscle. A lot of the problems that arise in older life and older generations is that muscle loss. It's about losing mobility and losing flexibility and losing strength that then cascade into all sorts of shit like osteoporosis and, just all these neurodegenerative disease. A lot of it comes from muscle loss. So we don't want that. We don't want that ever. All the muscle you have right at this minute, we either want it to grow or we want it to maintain. So that protein that we have sort of set for you right now on that, and if you don't know what that is, hit me up and we can sort of have a chat about it. But that needs to stay a constant, as often as possible. Every day, meh. But, for the most part, it has to be there. It has to be high enough for your body to not want to break down muscles. So, it's going to be different for everybody. I'm not going to put a number here, but, look through your plans or work it out through a calculator that's online, just how much protein you need to keep that sustainable. All right. Your fats and your carbs are going to be really interchangeable through here. People don't realize just how much versatility you have within those two macros. Once calories are equated, the difference in fat loss and the difference in muscle gain between higher carbohydrate and higher fat are lower than most people would think. It's not as important if the calories are equated. If you're doing a lot of weight training, then carbohydrates should take a much higher priority. If you are very, very sedentary and you're not moving much at all, then fats should probably take a priority. But once again, you have to know that for yourself. I can't tell you that. You need to be honest with yourself and know how much you eat and what you need from that. So that's really all you need to do. You need to go from there. So if that means that mucking around with the food that I've already put on your diet, on the Google Sheet one, then do that. If you are using MyFitnessPal at the moment and you're wondering where you should sort of go after this challenge on MyFitnessPal, tracking calories and things like that, look, I would probably bump up calories another 200 to 300 calories per week sort of thing. Just building it up slowly so that we don't get this influx and our body just goes, what the hell, and then just starts really just packing on the weight. That is very easy to happen, and that's happened to me plenty of times. So make sure that's not the case. So a nice steady increase of foods that you enjoy, foods that you that you digest really well and isn't going to cause havoc in the gut, which therefore really fucks up digestion, and all the other foods that you eat don't get metabolized the same way, and you start to feel yuck, and you start to, and then you think you're getting fat, and then all of this stuff and mental games start to happen. It's a nightmare, right? So nice, steady increase, as long getting back to maintenance, right? So, your maintenance calories should be around what your plans show on your first week. So I didn't change the diets from there. The weekly changes was where the diets were. So looking at that first challenge, that first diet thing that's in there and all the foods that it had in there, that is what I would consider to be close to your maintenance calories, maybe slightly higher. I did start some people a little bit lower than usual. But yeah, starting from there and then either using the foods that are given or going through MyFitnessPal and creating your own new diet. It all works. It's about the consistency and how long you can do it. But if you're not tracking, you have no idea. If you're not paying attention, it's going to slip away from you like it did. And why you have done this challenge is because it slipped away. It slipped away for me. It slipped away for pretty much all of us in this, and that's why we're in this position, and that's why I want everyone to keep it as long as possible. So any more questions regarding future diet, supplementation or anything like that, comments below. Is diet soda okay in a diet? I like this question. I obviously had someone in this challenge who was basically having, up to 2 to 3 a day of these. And, when I sort of said at the start of this challenge, I would like to take them out for a little while, just to see how your body reacts. And it was actually quite an emotional moment, to feel like that was getting taken away. But overall, is diet soda okay in a long-term diet? The studies show that, it really doesn't pay too much of an issue when dieting as far as losing weight goes. They're 0 calorie. The problem is definitely with the actual full sugar ones, because they have the amount of calories of like a full meal in one of them, right? But diet soda, they are basically calorie free, right? And they use a lot of artificial sweeteners and things like that. So there is something to be wary about, and actually being, once again, self-aware with your body in how they make you feel. So do you feel like bloated and gassy and, after having a couple? Then probably shouldn't have diet soda. Does it help you stay on track with your diet? Does it allow you to socialize with friends better because you don't feel like you're missing out because you're just drinking water? So therefore you're going to pick a diet soda? Then absolutely, you should have one. Now, where I more stand on, and why I said at the start of this challenge to a lot of people that I wanted to take diet sodas out of their plan for a little while, is more to do with the reliance on it, right? I have a belief that, you don't really want to feel too reliant on anything, and you want to be able to prove to yourself. That's a win within itself, being able to just give up that, right? And we need to, in this dieting stage, it's about stacking up these little wins in the long term, so that over time you're making better decisions. So, it's not going to break your diet, and it's not going to stuff you up, and it's not going to make you put on a whole heap of fat. No, it's not. But is it something just like any other drug, just like any other supplement or anything like that? Is it good to have, non-stop for long periods of time? I would say that nothing is. So, being able to stop it, being able to take it out of your diet for a period of time and then use it when you actually need it. It's not a thing that you're just relying on to get through the day. That's more where I stand. So, they can be in the diet. They can be used effectively to, limit hunger and, just help digestion as well, a little bit from the fizziness some people, feel more anecdotally. But, if you're relying on it for, energy or for something else that, I don't really know about, then you need to be able to get to a place where you don't need it. It should be something that you enjoy. It should be something that you love. And it shouldn't be something that you have to rely on, or else you feel like shit throughout the rest of the day. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. Questions below. So this is how I'm going to be answering some of the questions that have been sent in. Feel free to put in the comments if you have any other questions that sort of come from this, and I'm happy to do another video and just make sure that we're all on the same page. But first question that I wanted to address is, what is the most important to hit every day when I have lots of responsibilities, when I have work, when I just can't do everything that is on the plan? What are like those main things to hit? So awesome question. I think that's a really good way to look at it, because you're right. With programming, you program for the best possible outcome. You're programming so that this is everything that you should be doing in a day or could get done in a day to push you towards your goal. But there's you have to find that middle ground where like you're able to still progress but still live your life the way that you should. So the most important things to hit, I would 100% say that if you, it's hard to say because it depends on what you consider, like a higher priority for yourself. Training, if you miss out on a day of training, what's important is that your diet reflects that. So every time you train, every time that, you exercise and do weight training or a big cardio session, it does change the physiological way that your body digests food and uses it and all of that. So you want to make sure that you're making that switch, and that's why on our plans we have the blue days and the green days, right? Which is, even if you're not following the exact foods, it's the principles inside that program. So blue is for training because fats, staying pretty constant. Protein's a little bit higher usually, and so is carbohydrates because our body will want to use carbohydrates when we're doing high intensity exercise. So we want to feed it that, because if we feed it the wrong fuel during that time, then we're not going to get the best effect from it. If we're trying to pull our energy from fat during a high intensity workout, it's a little bit harder. So on the days that we don't have that, on the days that we have not training, we're not moving anywhere near as much, we're going to be using more fat. You know what I mean? So, our body is going through these constant changes of what's happening. So if you're not going to be able to train that day, you need to be looking at the rest day foods where fat is a little bit higher. Carbs are definitely lower because we're not doing that high intensity exercise to allocate or to actually, to actually facilitate the use of carbs in that day. And it's going to go up and down. If you're going to have a good workout, then, you can add in those carbs on that second day when you're actually going to have time to do a good, have a good session, feel good, and actually uptake some of that carbs. But yeah, if you're not training, it's slightly higher, it's slightly lower carb basically. So, you want to be just making those choices in your diet. I'm not training today, so I don't need the carbohydrates, the energy that the carbohydrates bring. So cut them out. All right. Water is definitely an easy one to make sure that you make sure that doesn't sort of go up or down too much. That should really stay a constant no matter what. There's no reason why you can't drink your water. For most people, that's a minimum of 2 liters. It's going to go up and down, but it just needs to stay constant. Your body needs to feel like it can rely on you to drink the water, nourish the body, and use it in a way so that it doesn't try and hold on to water. You have to think about it, from an instinctual and a genetic standpoint of if your body doesn't know when to actually expect water intake or salt intake or, food in general or training, if it can't predict it, then it's going to hold on to more water. It's going to, try and reuse and not actually flush out the way that it should. So keeping a steady intake non-stop, every 20, 30 minutes, just taking a little sip. It's actually been a little while for me. Okay. Doing that constantly is going to make sure that your body can expect it and it doesn't have to hold on. So you're going to go to the toilet more. That's a good thing. Your urine shouldn't be like straight up clear glass water. There should still be like a light tinge to it. So it's not about drinking exorbitant amounts of water. It's much more about consistent intake all throughout the day. Just don't even think about it. Just 1-2 sip, put it back down. 1-2 sip, put it back down every little time. Steps is another thing that was mentioned there. Yes, but I also don't like to make that too much of a problem if they're not always high. Like, I have days where they're, below 7,000. I have days where they're above 15,000. It's about being able to understand the principle that you did not do as much as you would normally do, so you shouldn't eat the way you do and do the things that you do on the days where you're really, really good and really training. So being able to just make those small little shifts by reducing calorie intakes, maybe just taking away one of those snacks, little things like that, then the rest days are good. You need to be able to look at that rest day and actually say, it's a good thing for my recovery. It's a good thing for me to feel like I'm 100% for the next workout, because though, it's one thing to work out, but are you actually getting that intensity that you need? Are you enjoying it the way that you should? Are you feeling like your muscles are, taking up, getting more blood to them, and, you're getting your heart rate up and you're feeling good? Those things are important. And when you are tired, fatigued, low calories all the time, not taking that rest, it's much, much harder to get it. It's much harder to bring that intensity. So that's basically it. So keeping water high, adjusting your food to, more importantly, the carbohydrate intake based on your activity levels. If you're having a day where you're just not going to be moving as much, you need to be able to make that switch. Or on the other hand, just enjoy it. Just enjoy that day off, eat what you want to eat the way that you normally would, and get on with it the following day. One day doesn't break it. It's the consistency over the long term that is going to build the physique that we're after and be able to do this long term. So forgive yourself when it's a day that it's not 100%, but that's what we got to do. Yeah, hope this helps. Any more questions that sort of pertain to this, leave them in the comments below. I am happy to make another one. All right, thanks guys. Does medication affect fat loss? This is one that I'm going to sort of really tread lightly on. I'm nowhere near qualified to talk about specific medications in general. I can sort of just take an overall approach to this question. Does medication affect fat loss? Absolutely. Absolutely. There are certain medications out there, antidepressants, acne ones, that do affect it in a way. In most cases, what it does is it just changes certain physiological ways that your body is working, and sometimes lowers your basal metabolic rate or the amount of calories you burn each day, right? So that's important to really just take, it's not going to make or break. Yes, I've worked with people who have started, antidepressants and put on a lot of weight really fast, and certain other ones as well. So, it does happen, but we can still control it. You can't make fat out of nothing. So it's more about just controlling the caloric intake and not being emotional with how much you have to eat to lose weight. I have to eat much less than a normal person my weight and of muscle would need to lose weight, because I just personally feel my genetics, my father is a little bit overweight, like it sort of just runs in the family. So, I can't eat a lot. I can't go just way over and just eat and not put on weight. So what usually happens is that someone that is not taking medication will find a certain way that works for them and eats, and they can stay relatively healthy. Their weight will fluctuate a little bit, but it doesn't change too much. And then by adding in some of this medication, whatever it does inside the body that I don't want to get into too deep, it is lowering the amount of calories that your body needs to function on a day-to-day basis, but you're not changing the way that you eat. So then that's when body fat is going to start coming on. So, if you're starting to notice that, it's not about getting emotional that medication is actually making you put on weight. It's about just readjusting that calorie balance, maybe just doing a little bit more cardio that, you wouldn't normally do, or, just dropping down the calories just a little bit more than what you normally would, and just tracking it and seeing what it's looking like. That's all we can really do in that, because if it's medication you need to be taking, you can't blame it on the fat loss. You can't blame it on the medication, because once you start doing that, you're going to be a victim to that, and we don't want that. You're not a victim to anything in your life. We can change the things that we need to change, and it's just about being able to stay consistent with it, and it's about being able to actually move forward and find out the solution to it. It could be a different form of medication. It could be another way, but I'm sure in most cases we can work around it, and it's about just being unemotional to the calories that is needed to lose weight, because it's going to be different for everyone, and it's going to change from day to day. It's going to change whether you're taking medication. It's going to change from whether you're working from home versus commuting to work, how much water you intake, how much sodium you intake, the types of food that you eat. More protein is going to lead to burning more calories in a day. How much sleep you get. It all matters. It all matters into this equation of how many calories you're going to burn in a day. So, for some people, it's just luckily a lot higher than most. It's just high. I work with people that can eat 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 calories and not put on an inch of fat. They just soak it up, and it goes into their muscles, and they look amazing. And I do that, and it just doesn't. I can't intake that amount. If I go up to 4,000 or 5,000 calories, I just look really puffy and bloated, even though I'm, I should be able to, because, if people are the same weight, height, and musculature as myself, they can get that. I just can't. And, yes, is it sad? Do I wish I could eat 4,500 calories a day? Absolutely. I will probably get there if I start to build myself up and, get lean enough so that my body can uptake more carbohydrates. I'll probably get there. But at this minute, can I? No. And is it a bad thing? No. It's just what it is. Don't be emotional about it. It's about cutting. It's about, being diligent with the tracking so that you can see, I'm eating this amount of calories. Is the scales moving the way that I want it to move? Am I looking the way that I want to look? Have I got the power and the intensity and the, that motivation to keep going? Because that's going to be affected by your fatigue and how tired you are and how low your calories are as well. So it's a balancing game, and that's why you guys, that's why it's hard, and that's why, a lot of people do end up investing in coaches, because it's easier just to let that be taken on by someone else and just, so you can just follow it and be done. But if you want to be able to take this to the next level on your own, and you want to be able to continue seeing results beyond this, you have to be unemotional with, how much food you're eating and what it takes to get there. Don't get mad at yourself when it's not moving in the direction. Understand it's something that you're doing, and it's something that is still a part of you, and we can get past, and we can continue to drop in any way, and we continue to make progress by just adjusting what the data is telling us in that moment. That's all we need to do. It's about starting a plan, seeing what happens, adjusting the variables, seeing what happens, adjusting the variables. And it's just doing that as long as you possibly can for three weeks, and then 6 weeks, and then 8 weeks at the end of the challenge, and then 2 months, and then 3 months. And during that time, your goal is going to change. During that time, you may decide that, what, I'm done losing weight. I'm done feeling a little bit lethargic. I'm done feeling a bit tired. I want to feel strong. I want to build on some muscle, and I'll come back to losing the rest of the weight a little bit later. All of that stuff can happen, and that's all okay. But then it's about adjusting the variables and doing it again, right? So that's really what it's about. And does medication affect fat loss? Absolutely. Some do, some has zero effect. Some will obviously help you lose weight. Some will increase that basal metabolic rate. Some will increase fatty mobilization, like acetyl-L-carnitine and CLA and little things like that. That is supplements and medication that you can take that will help you. So it's going to work in both ways, and you can't be emotional about it. It's about, from there, adjusting the variables, and then keep it going. Thanks. Should I keep dieting after the 8 weeks? This is a real good question. It's something that I'm struggling with myself personally. Should I, because I've been following along with you guys. There's some of you that have been even better than myself as far as following the plan. But I've been there every step of the way with you guys. I've been doing my workouts. I've completely cleaned up my nutrition. I've been alongside it with you. And doing it and seeing my own body transform again. And that's thanks to you guys. You've given me the motivation and the discipline, and, actually wanting to do it alongside other people is so important. That feeling of community, and that we're actually doing it together at the same time. It's making me realize just how important that is. And I haven't really felt that before. And to be actually in the group and leading the group that is doing it and making me feel that way, it's just amazing. So before I start this question, thanks everyone again for doing this 8-week challenge with me. It's been beautiful. So should you keep dieting after the 8 weeks? This really depends on how you feel at the end of your challenge, right? I made this challenge in a way that, it should feel sustainable, right? As the weeks go on and the food gets a little bit lower and the training gets a bit harder, obviously that part isn't as sustainable. But, when you go back to that first 2 weeks of dieting and training that we did, and everyone was seeing incredible results. I've never seen anything like it. People were just, messaging me. I was getting the check-ins, and people were losing, a kilo, 2 kilo, 3 kilo, 4 kilo, feeling amazing. Everything's going good. I feel like, a new person during this time. Did that feel sustainable at the time? That if it did, then awesome. And you want to keep going, and you want to see what your body's capable of, then yes, you should keep going, and you should find a way that, you can implement the things that we've done during this 8-week challenge into your normal day-to-day life. It's not about following the plan exactly to a T. That's why I give you so much autonomy over it, and I send it out in a Google Sheets so that you can adjust it yourself, and you can play around with the food. And I put in all those extra macros and different foods that we can use in that separate tab, so you can muck around with it and try different things and, feel like you're in control. As much as, a lot of people feel like I'm in control, I can't do anything from here. I'm in my own home. I have to follow my own stuff. You're going to be making those decisions every single day towards getting towards the body that you're after. So you need to feel confident that, you're going to be able to eat in a way that's not going to undo the hard work that you've done. I think that's more important finishing a challenge, because, man, when I finish a bodybuilding prep, I couldn't do it a day longer. You know what I mean? Like, I finished that. Granted, it's a little bit longer and it's a little bit more less sustainable as far as the foods that I'm eating and like how much it takes over my life. But once that show is done, I'm done. I can't do another second. And what normally happens, and what's happened every single time that has happened, is I've put all the weight back on and lost all that hard work that took me 6 months to build. I lose it in 2 weeks because I can't keep a diet afterwards. Now, that is important to remember on yourself, because I don't want to get those messages, a week after, with everyone feeling like shit because they've just eaten so much and they've bloated out to nothing. And they just lose all that motivation and, this willpower and this, belief in yourself that you've built over these last 8 weeks to just disappear the second the challenge is over. So, if you feel like you can if you feel like, you're completely happy with what you've done, you don't actually want to, you told me at the start that you wanted to lose some weight and you have lost some weight during this period, then, and you're happy with where it got to in that 8 weeks, then should you keep dieting? I mean, yeah, if you want to keep it there, and everyone says, like, one of those terms that you always hear is, if I could just get to my goal weight, I'd be able to maintain it, no problem. I can promise you it is not that easy. It requires self-awareness. It requires you paying attention to the things that you're doing. It doesn't just stay because you tell it. If you go back to your old lifestyle, I guarantee within 2 weeks, within a month, within 6 months, you're going to go back exactly to where you were, and then we're going to have to do this process all over again. You guys have worked so hard in a time where a lot of people, including myself, I didn't have a lot of faith in myself to be able to change as much as I have. I've always relied on gyms. I've always relied on another coach. I've always relied on someone else to help me through the process. And this is the first time where it's all me. It's my whatever equipment I have at my house. It's whatever food I put into my body. It's my 100% choice. I'm making my own diet plans. And so you have to take that accountability on beyond this challenge. The accountability is important to stay. Should you continue the exact diet that you have been running over these 8 weeks? Absolutely not. No one should diet and eat the exact same foods forever. That's not what this is about. If you are good with actually your calories, if you're good with actually adjusting that and tracking through like something like MyFitnessPal or something like that, then yeah, maybe keep those calories around the same, bump them up a little bit so you feel a little bit better and you got some oomph in the workouts. But tracking and understanding food and calories and how to eat is something that has to stay with you for the rest of your life, because it's never going to go away. Food is the one thing that we can't get away from. So the more trust you have in yourself and the more decisions you can make that's towards your goal, whether it's maintaining, whether it's losing more weight, whether it's putting on more muscle, it doesn't matter. As long as you need to be confident in your ability to make those decisions with me, without me, with another coach, because I've had coaches that don't really listen to what you're telling them and just tell you to eat a certain way and it doesn't feel right. And it's hard. It's really hard. And I've tried so hard not to be that person in this challenge for you, because it's not right. It's not, you need to be able to have some feel of control over yourself. If you put all the blame and you put all the responsibility on an outside party, on myself, on another coach, on an app, on a gym, on an actual gym being open, and you put all that responsibility and accountability on that, and if that is not working, then it's their fault, then this is going to be a long time of yo-yoing, and this is exactly what's happened to me. It's up and down, up and down. And my mindset is finally changing that, it's my fault. It's up to me to maintain that. And if I want to keep a nice body that I'm proud of and I feel looks good, then that's going to take consistent effort on my part to keep that there and to keep it progressing. And luckily for me, this is my job. It's my job to learn more about this stuff and experiment and try different things. So I do have the luck in that sense that I can do that from a day-to-day basis, and it shouldn't take out too much from my life. But if keeping this physique that you have worked so hard for is as important to you as it is to me, then yes, this diet should continue over the 8 weeks. Now, if this was just something for you to get back on track and for you to feel like you had some importance, or you had some accountability during one of the hardest times in your life, during this lockdown, and that was the reason why we did this, and now that you've learned some of these things that we talk about, you know, and you understand the principles, you've decided that you don't want to make this a massive priority in your life afterwards, but now you have the tools so that when it does become a priority, you can do it again on your own, and you can use this exact plan because you keep that plan forever. You can just pull it up and you can just start doing it your way and just get back on track. If that's you, then more power to you. That's a great way to be able to think without, you know, putting it always at this top priority. When you do that, it's going to be really hard to, you know, enjoy the rest of your life and to enjoy the other beautiful things like partners and social interaction and, you know, eating out and, you know, seeing your family and things like that. That stuff gets affected when you're dieting and you're being really selfish about what you're doing. So if it means you needing to take a break to then focus on those things and then come back to dieting, then do that as well. There's no right way around this. You need to be self-aware. You need to know where you're at, you know, what you want. What's important to me is that you understand how to do it. How long you do it is completely up to you. And the only reason why there's an 8-week challenge on this is so that, you know, it could be standardized across a group of people. But this is online coaching. This is how it should feel when you are paying for a coach. You should feel like you're on track. You should feel like, you know, you're being listened to and that, you know, you can continue to make progress throughout this. Just because the 8 weeks is over doesn't mean that's going to change. So yeah, that's my thought on it. Me personally, I'm going to probably continue for a little bit longer. If I can hit that 81 kilos that I want, if I can lose an extra 1.5 kilos in these last 10 days or so, then I might stop and then go into like a much leaner bulk than I ever have before. But if I don't get there, I don't get there. And if I want to keep going to hit that goal to make me feel good, to make me feel like I've accomplished something, then I'm going to do that. And, you know, there's no right or wrong answer to that. So hope this helps. Comment below if you have any questions. All right, this is actually an awesome question. Is skipping breakfast a problem for metabolism? And my personal thoughts on like just fasting and, you know, having that prolonged period of time without eating. So, you know, there's been a massive uptake of the idea that you need to eat like consistent small meals all the time to maintain a healthy metabolism. Now, look, you know, there is a little bit of truth to that in my opinion, that eating and actually allowing your body to digest food and, you know, to use the digestive systems that we have is important for a healthy metabolism. You know, fasting and just not eating at all, you know, over long periods of time is not necessarily healthy. But there is definitely a flip side to that. And I think the flip side not enough people talk about when it comes to fasting or skipping breakfast or anything like that. You know, me personally, a lot of days I actually skip breakfast. Sometimes my first meal isn't until, you know, after midday, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. In all honesty, it's 3:45 now. And if I'm being honest, I actually haven't eaten yet because I'm just feeling good. Now, this goes towards it really depends on what your goal is, okay? So if your goal is to lose some body fat and to drop body fat, then we need to ask ourselves, how can we make our body use the body fat on us, you know, that is around us, and use that as the fuel so that we lose body fat off our body. Now, if you're consistently taking in food all the time, why would your body want to use fat on your body when you're giving it a nice consistent flow of food all the time? And it doesn't have to tap into fat stores because we are providing it with the energy that it needs. So we need to look at, you know, how do you start to feel when you're fasting, right? Or if, you know, let's say you go 8 hours without food, how do you start to feel? Do you start to feel really lethargic? Do you start to feel really tired? Do you start to feel like you just need to go to sleep? You need to have a nap? Do you feel like your workouts suffer? Do you feel like you just start craving like a ridiculous and exorbitant amount of food if you go too long without eating? If that explains you, or if that, you know, sounds like you, then I would argue that there actually is a little bit of a problem with your ability to use fat as fuel. Now, it's sort of like a fine line, because like then, you know, in saying that, then we should be able to just go weeks without eating and we'll just be shredded. it's not that simple. I'm not trying to downplay the importance of like, nice consistent meals, but at the same time, you need to allow your body to go periods of time without getting food, because if you're consistently snacking, your body is taking that in and it has to go somewhere. When it goes down your mouth and it goes into your stomach and it goes through, the rest of your system, it is going somewhere. It doesn't just disappear. Those calories go inside the body and they're going to be used for fuel because it's the fastest acting way to use it, especially if you have lived more of a sedentary life for the last, 6 months of lockdown. If you haven't given your body a reason to like use fat by increasing your increasing your exercise, by actually eating in a way that that allows that to happen, and to actually look, at the end of the day, fasting really does more. It talks more to the carbohydrates, right? So I quite often myself do what's called like a protein sparing fast, where basically almost all day, so for 24 hours, I don't have any carbohydrates or any fats, and I just stick to protein. Sorry, that's a lie. I have a small amount of fat, so I'll have like a steak, or sometimes I just have like a protein powder shake, and I'll just do that 3 or 4 times a day, where it's low everything else. So it's low fat, it's low carb, and it's just the protein there. Now, because protein isn't usually used for an energy source, protein is used for recovery. It's used for anabolism and actually building muscle. In dire times of dieting, then yes, protein can be turned into glycogen through gluconeogenesis. Don't quote me on that exact word. I'll have to look it up. But there is a term and a process where protein can be turned into an energy source, but it's very hard to. And if we have set up our body in a way where it can actually utilize body fat on yourself quite well, then it's not normally going to happen. So by just keeping the protein relatively high and allowing carbs and fats, which are our main sources of energy, low, my body doesn't have a choice but to start using body fat on me. So, it's tough. It is hard to fast, and I'm not even saying that I recommend it to you asking the question, or actually, anyone else. I don't normally say, yeah, that's exactly what you're going to do, and that's the answer to fat loss. But I do have a problem with people saying that, you have to eat 4 to 6 meals to maintain a healthy metabolism, because yes, you may burn more, so your metabolism might be higher, and because you're eating more and because of the thermic effect of food, which means you burn more calories, because you need to burn calories to digest food. Like, that process takes calories. It's not because you're going to be eating more calories as well. You know what I mean? You're going to be burning more calories, but you're eating more calories. So you're playing this constant game of the two, and it's okay to not eat. It's okay for you to actually allow your body to digest food, especially if you're having really big meals. When you continually pack in food into your meals, yes, it's good for it, but this is what I was saying, and this is the whole 5 minutes, 6 minutes that I've been talking. This is talking about fat loss. This is when your goal is, I want to lose fat. You need to be able to be in a position where when you're not eating, your body can actually kick into its your intra-fat that's inside you, around your organs, on the outside of your muscles. That's what we want it to use, and that requires a proper diet setup. There's so many different ways to do this. I'm not saying my way is the only way to get there. There's a million ways to set up your body to allow that to happen and to actually burn fat. You need to be training regularly, because your heart, you burn fat at its best when your heart rate is that little bit higher, usually between that 120 to 150 beats per minute. When it's up there, that's when fat is being used the most. So if you're not actually getting your body there ever, even if you're weight training or anything like that, but you're not bringing the intensity, then you're going to have a problem burning fat. You're going to have a problem actually getting it there. And that's something that I neglect. I'm very quick to, especially not having basketball at the moment. I've neglected cardio almost completely until the last 2 weeks, where I've added in some skipping, and I immediately feel a difference in my body, because I'm able to uptake fat much better, and doing that fasted without having actually any fat in the system, and then telling my body to prefer fat as a for fat as a fuel source by getting my heart rate up, and that's where it wants to use fat, but I didn't give it fat, I didn't give it energy to use, then we can lose fat, right? I don't want to get too much into like the insulin debate. You know, there's so many videos and so much information on like fasting and things like that. But for the people that are listening to this and the people that actually want to, you know, just make sure that they're doing the right thing and, you know, they're getting the right information, I would be saying that, is skipping breakfast a problem for metabolism? No, it's not. You know, food choices will make a difference. So by having things like cereal and pastas and things like that, that is going to be a much different physiological effect inside the body than is to having like eggs or, you know, some meat or, you know, like a sort of a higher protein or just a whey protein shake or some fruit. Every single way that you eat, it's going to play a different role in how that affects, you know, your body and your transformation. So is it a problem? No. My thoughts on fasting, I personally like it, you know, but this comes down to a mindset thing for me as well. I have a very big problem with emotional eating, I guess, or binge eating. When I'm on a diet, just all of a sudden I get this sudden rush and wave of hunger where I can't stop it. And especially if I have like one little thing, I have like a one rice cake or something like that, I instantly can't stop myself. So a good way for me to stop that train of thought and to stop that pattern is actually to fast, and actually tell myself in my mind that I'm fasting right now, so I can't eat anything, right? So it's not just, oh, I'll just have one, and, you know, and then all of a sudden you've eaten the whole packet. I just tell myself I can't have anything because I'm fasting. And, you know, the time periods for that is completely different. Sometimes I just skip, I just leave breakfast. I end up having the same meal I would anyway, so it's still breakfast, because breakfast is breaking fast. You know, so whether it's at 8 a.m. in the morning, 12 p.m. in the morning, or 6 o'clock at night, that first meal of the day is you breaking your fast. Therefore, that is breakfast. And breakfast is the most important meal of the day, because it's going to set up how your body uses energy and utilizes energy for the rest of the day. So that's why I always recommend a high protein, moderate fat, very low carb breakfast as the first meal of the day, because you're teaching your body that fat is a good thing and fat can be used as an energy source. And so by prolonging that period of time that carbohydrates come into the system, your body is now learning to use fat inside the body. Even if it is from food sources, it has to be used in the same way. So, you know, there's so many different videos that are really good on this. ATP Project, a podcast on Apple and Spotify and whatever, do an amazing one that I think everyone should listen to. You know, I think everyone deserves to understand how all of that works from some, you know, naturopaths and nutritionists. You know, but these are my thoughts on it. So yeah. Don't worry if you don't eat breakfast. If you're trying to build muscle, as just a little side note here, if you're trying to build muscle, then you don't want to be getting your body to use intramuscular fat, because every moment that your body's using intra-fat, then you're not putting on muscle, right? So you need to keep your body in a constant state of anabolism for, you know, I shouldn't have really said it that way, but I'm going to keep it in, you know, but you want to spend as little amount of time inside that, you know, inside a fasted state, and actually making sure that you are allowing your body, you're giving it the essential amino acids, you're giving it the protein and the carbohydrates to allow your body to hold on to the muscle mass, you know, not worry about burning fat and worrying about making the muscles, giving everything that muscle needs, the glycogen, the protein, the amino acids, to grow. So if you're trying to grow muscle, then yes, I wouldn't be skipping too many breakfasts. You know, you do need to be having that 3 to 5 meals per day to make sure that you're constantly in that state of anabolism, growing, and you're not going too long into that catabolism, you know, taking away. Complete flip from what we want in a fat loss state, right? We want to be catabolic, but we want to be catabolic in a way where it's not preferring glycogen and muscle tissue, by allowing, you know, slightly higher fat diets, especially in the earlier stages when you're trying to teach your body again to lose fat. That's when we want to have that. So a little bit everywhere in that video. Once again, comments down below. Let me know if you have any questions. We'll do it again. Thanks. Can I enjoy takeout while dieting? Another good question. You know, and one where everybody has different different things going on in their mind about it. It's really weird to hear how people think about it. And so actually, so can you enjoy it? Absolutely. There's a way about it, but once again, this is something that I'm going to continue to talk about because it's so important. It's a self-awareness game. Okay. So I've trained someone, I'm training someone right at the moment who basically can keep a diet perfectly all throughout the week, Monday through Saturday on point, as long as on Sunday he has a cheat meal. It's something that whatever he enjoys, whether it's a kebab, whether it's a HSP, whether it's a pizza, whether it's some Nando's, he needs to have something that he enjoys on a Sunday to make sure that he can continue on with his diet throughout the rest of the week. Now, I think that's an awesome way to look at it, for a certain, personality type and someone who thinks in that way. If you can have that meal and you can enjoy some takeout, go out, meet some friends, enjoy that. And then literally from that moment that it ends, get back onto what you were doing and feel really strong and confident in your decisions after that. Then absolutely you can, because, one meal doesn't change anything. Now, are you the kind of person who actually has one takeout meal and then they feel really shit the next day, and then it lowers their motivation after that because, they see their weight go up, they feel really puffy and yuck, and then they feel like they've got no energy, and then they start craving takeout again, so then they get it again that night, and it just goes on and on and on and on in this circle? Then should you have takeout while you're dieting? No. Because it's something that calories is always going to play king, right? We can't lose fat or gain weight if the calories aren't being in question, right? You need to make sure that is sort of on track. And if you can't enjoy takeout while dieting, if you've tried it in the past and it didn't work and you just couldn't lose weight, then it's because your calories were out of whack. And if you could eat takeout and diet in the past and you lost weight while still being able to enjoy a meal out, it was because your calories were on track. It's one of those two things, right? So it depends on how it affects you mentally. It depends on how it makes you feel in that moment and the days after, and how well you're able to, get your body and get you back on track after that. So there's no right or wrong answer here. If you do want this approach, then I really, really recommend that you learn how to count calories. There's a lot of ways to do this. There's a lot of articles. I can personally go through it myself, even though I've, done it a few times in the past. But if you do enjoy takeout and that's something that actually brings you a lot of joy, then absolutely, it should be a part of your life. Maybe not in the 8-week challenge, because we are trying to see what our body can do. We are trying to see the best of the best, and then use this best of the best techniques to then incorporate into our normal day-to-day life. But after this challenge is over, if you enjoy going social out, I know for myself, I love going out with Talia and going out for lunch and going out for dinner and having a date night. And, it's a big part of my life. I love that. I love that feeling. I love going out. And I love burgers. I genuinely love eating burgers. Like, it brings me a lot of happiness, regardless of what it makes me feel inside the stomach. I just love eating them and trying new ones and, just enjoying it. So I'm going to be having burgers once this 8-week challenge is over. But does that mean I'm not on a diet? Absolutely not. A diet isn't defined by one meal out of the week. It's defined by your entire process and everything that you're doing. It's all a part of your diet. It's all a part of what you're doing. Now, also the thing to put into consideration here is how well are you training, right? Because someone who's training, someone who has actually gotten themselves relatively lean or leaner than they have been in the past, can usually take more junk, can usually process junk better, because fat is inflammation, and fat really affects the way that our body uptakes nutrients, digests food, loses weight and gains muscle. It has a massive effect, and a lot of people, and that's why people want to lose weight. They feel better after they lose weight. So, if you're leaner, then yeah, absolutely. You don't need to diet as hard. But if you're in that process at the moment where you're trying to lose a lot of weight and you're actually on this, hard journey where you're trying to get it done right, then every meal that you have that's not, tracked or planned is a step back. It is. We can't, dance around it. It is a step back, but it's how fast can you bring those steps back up? You know, are you taking one step back and then 10 steps forward and then one step back and then 10 steps forward? Or are you taking 6 steps back and then 3 steps forward every time you eat because you then have a shit sleep and then you eat something worse the next day because you're craving and then you feel tired and then you can't give up your workouts right? You know, does it have that effect on you, or do you eat the food, eat the takeout meal and socialize with friends, wake up the next morning and feel amazing and that you were able to have such a good time? It's up to you. Self-awareness is the game. Understanding you as a person is the game, and there's no right or wrong answers here. So once again, comments below. Any more questions specific to you? I want to do these more often, all right? Thanks.